The allure of remote working is absolutely undeniable, but we mustn't forget that there are essential elements that enhance the virtual experience, like connectivity, teamwork, collaboration. They can sometimes get lost in that virtual space. So today is an exciting day because we have an amazing guest, Kimmy, that's with us. Kimmy is someone who has mastered that art of keeping the teams motivated and informed in that virtual space. So, welcome to the Inner Cosmetics Podcast, Kimmy. You've been such a motivator for me as I get settled into this financial space and serve. And you epitomize not just what remote working should look like, but what it should feel like. And so we're expanding and bringing new team members on board. And so I thought this is a perfect opportunity to tap in learning more about you as a team leader. So as I mentioned earlier, you're a source of motivation for the team. So I think it's only fitting that I start by asking what motivates you in the morning.
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me on, Elle. This is my first podcast, so please let me know. I'm under your guidance here, but really, it truly does mean a lot to me to be here with you and for you, because this is I absolutely adore. And so to answer that question, what motivates me in the morning, honestly, getting up with a sense of purpose is a big motivating factor, right? So I have a morning routine, but having that really top maybe 2 or 3 things that I know is going to really speak to me and to get me out of bed and to make my day brighter is what motivates me in the morning. And knowing that I'm here to serve, like you said, and here for my team, because I'm not just doing it for me anymore, is something that really gets me out of bed.
I love that because, working in a remote space, it has its own set of challenges, right? And I think that the collective success, it really relies on each person individually being able to self-motivate. And that's a tough challenge when you're your own person. You don't have anyone in that 9 to 5 space congratulating you, rewarding you. Self-motivation is key.
Absolutely. Well, and that's one of the biggest hurdles of working remotely is that you have to be a self-starter in whatever industry you're in, because you don't have anybody kind of micromanaging you. And so you have to kind of micromanage yourself, right? So that's where like systems really come into play, is having your day set out in a way that is going to be manageable for you, and really finding your reason of doing it. For me, I am a servant leader, and so I love being able to be there for my trainees, for my agents, however they need me. And I've been in this space for a long time. And so just learning through the years of what works, what doesn't, what motivates, right, is really what has taught me how to really energize people. And what drives them, because we are all different.
Yes. And you started touching on, and I was going to say, you're going to feed into the next question, just a little bit more, if you could share about your background and how long you've actually been in this space.
So my background, I was in the beauty industry for a long time, being a family business. It was just something that I was pulled into. But realistically, I didn't see a lot of longevity in that sort of business, just because I wanted time freedom with my children. I didn't want to be like beholden to a salon all day. Very early on, I was working, 70, 80 hours a week. And that's very normal in the salon business, in the beauty industry. And so prior to having children, that was maybe okay, right? Like that was okay. But now I need time with my family. I did something that would give me that time freedom, but also give me that financial freedom as well, instead of being beholden to like a 9 to 5 job. And so that's kind of how I fell into this industry. I've been doing this since 2008. It was a much different industry back then than it is now. And so, we're talking about time freedom. I have a lot more time freedom now than even when I started back then, because I'm cutting out a lot of the drive time.
Really? That would make sense, right? The remote working space.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So since 2018.
2008. I'm sorry. Yeah, 2000.
2008.
Yes.
Okay. So I can see your passion definitely reflects in it. And it's going to lead me to my next question. You have a unique story of being a stay-at-home mom. And don't be shy about this, the six-figure earning. I don't think, we should, especially as women, step into that space of owning. There's sometimes I know I can get caught up in, oh, wow, there's so much freedom, but there's these possibilities that this offers in this space.
Absolutely. And so growing up, had never thought I would be a stay-at-home mom, truthfully. I feel like there are certain women made for certain roles, and I have so much respect for those who love being a stay-at-home mom and being there for their children. I wish I was more patient, honestly. But I always knew that I wanted to work just because, I want to serve more than just my family, really is what
Mm-hmm.
it comes down to, if I'm being fully honest, because I know my family is always going to be there, and I want to be able to give them my undivided attention. However, I want to do more for my community. I wanted to do more for my my sisterhood, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so being in a space that would let me serve others as well is really something that spoke to me. And I found that through being, in the beauty industry and doing what I was doing. Um,
Mm.
but having that sense of purpose outside of being a mother and a wife is something that I really needed to feed my soul. Because honestly, sometimes, being a mother and a wife, you kind of lose yourself, and you kind of lose your identity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I suffered from very early on in motherhood. I had a very severe, postpartum depression. And so for, a couple of years, I really wasn't quite myself because I was not feeding into what drove me. And that is, like I said, serving others outside of my family as well.
So how do you balance that, like the single mom and wife, children? How
Well,
do you?
so I don't call myself a single mom, even though my husband is in the Navy and he deploys often.
You
But
know what? I'm so sorry because I'm thinking of myself,
oh yeah,
single
well,
mom,
and
and
I
I'm
was
like
gonna say the
projecting.
same. Yeah, well, you know what? Honestly, and that's why I love being here with you, because I don't know how you do it. I really don't. You're just phenomenal at everything you do. But I have so much respect for the true single parents, who have to get up every day
Mm-hmm.
and do everything and be the 100%. Because me, sometimes I can be an 80 and my husband's a 20, I can be a 50 and my husband's a 50.
Mm-hmm.
And
Hmm.
so for me, even though he deploys for 6 to 9 months at a time, I
Okay.
call myself a solo parent during that, during that time.
Okay.
But I just in that brief time, I don't know how you do it, also. I mean, like, you have my full.
Lots of wine.
Yes. In every aspect, right? um but to come back to your question, really, um it really is just, it comes down to purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
um
Mm-hmm.
you have to be very honest with yourself. And a lot of times I feel like as women, we're afraid to be honest with ourselves because we
Oh
feel
my God.
like I'm like, I'm very torn right now to whether or not I want to say this, because it is a very hard thing to realize, and it is a very hard thing to accept, because
Yeah.
you want to be so much to so many others, but
Mm-hmm.
we forget how to be somebody to ourselves. And so, obviously we want to be a good mother, we want to be a good wife,
Mm-hmm.
but then that doesn't really nourish your soul,
Correct.
because you are more than just a mother and a wife. Like, you had an identity before you became a mother and a wife. And if you want to fully immerse yourself into those two aspects right now,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, right? Like, wholeheartedly, I will appreciate that and support that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, I feel like a lot of people, they're like, okay, well, what happens when my kids grow up? I don't know who I am. I don't know who to be, right? And then same thing,
Mm-hmm.
should anything ever happen to your marriage, for whatever the reason, right? Who are you then? And so it's very important to keep that sense of self, that sense of purpose, that sense of identity throughout your life, because really that's what gives me purpose and drive. And I have two little girls who look up to me, and I want them to know that through whatever stage of their life, as long as they're being true to themselves and as long as they're living their life with purpose, then that is something that they need to hold on to dearly.
I love that because just because I do, it resonated for me. As much as we talked in the past, what I'm hearing is hitting so much deeper because you found me when I had left my government job, and when you talked to me about this opportunity, once I stepped into it, there's a sense of fulfillment.
Absolutely.
And it feels like that's what you're expressing right now, like that sense of, yes, you're a mother and a wife, and that feels good. But when you serve people as well, it just feels so much more of you.
Absolutely. And I am Christian. I am a believer of Christ. And so
Hmm.
for me, that whole purpose is in serving others, and
Yes.
fulfillment is in helping others, because at the end of the day, you can only achieve so much happiness trying to
Hmm.
make yourself happy. And that when you're serving others, that's when you kind of get that true sense of fulfillment, because now you're reaching out to something more than yourself,
Hmm.
because we could
Hmm.
only hold so much, right? But when we give to others, we're now spreading that joy, that happiness, that fulfillment, that hope. And so, I mean, in what we do, and what we are as a company, yeah, okay, we are there to serve a purpose. We're there to sell a product, whatever you want to say, right? But really, when it comes down to it, for me, I'm sharing information that, you know, for those who get it, it really will be able to help your family, be able to serve your family. And if that is the most that I can do for you is to share this information, then, I have done my job, because
Hmm.
this is what I believe in. This is a passion that I have really put myself into wholeheartedly. And that's to be able to protect families.
I think it's even a little more than that, right? Because it feels like it's the center of freedom. It feels like everything always falls back in some unique way, finances.
Absolutely.
And that's not something that we're taught in schools.
No, it's not. And, being a military spouse as well, and in this military world, it's not really something that's taught in this space either, And so,
Hmm.
for me, and what is it? This is a very sensitive subject, I feel like, but as women, we may or may not be as financially savvy as we should be.
Yes.
And so with that said, to be able to have that independence, that freedom, that knowledge, right? Because knowledge
Hmm.
really is power, is something that I really would like to pass on to everybody, but more specifically are, my women out there who feel like they have no sense of control,
Yes.
and or like may have lost that sense of control. And so to
Hmm.
have that financial education, to be able to give themselves that freedom, is really what, you and I are trying to do.
Yes. What we're doing. And making this the norm to have these conversations, right? It's
Absolutely.
not some hush hush thing. Let's talk about it.
Absolutely. And oh my goodness, just the fact that we can have an open conversation about it, is
Yes.
freeing, because
Yes.
not everybody wants to either share or be receptive to information.
100%. Which drives me to the next thing is about the passive income. That's a topic of interest for a lot of people, right? Passive income. What strategy investments have you personally found like most effective for generating that passive income?
So I always believe in several different methods, right?
Okay.
Uh, if we're talking about like what have I used, I've gone through a lot. Like I have really delved into a lot of different types of ways to make passive income. Um,
Hmm.
Divesting is something that's very big for me, because you can't have all your eggs in one basket, honestly. And so having a truly well-rounded portfolio is pivotal to financial freedom, because we are in the, risk management area. And
Hmm.
so to be able to do that, if you are lumping yourself into one type only of income producing, right? You're missing out on a whole entire world of other options, right?
Hmm.
Now, where that goes into is, passive income. There's a lot of different ways to do it, right? But the reality is there's only one you, there's only 24 hours in a day, right? So being able to reach outside of who you are and what you're doing, and getting into the team building space and getting into the duplication space is something that eventually, you want to look into. Because I mean, you could have a side hustle, you could have two side hustles, but again, there's only one you, there's only 24 hours in a day, right? So
Right.
how much of you are you going to split up to do this main job, this side hustle, this other side hustle? I've seen people who have two or three different jobs, right?
Hmm.
But they're still having a hard time keeping afloat because you can only work so much.
That's so true. Because see, you made my mind explode in so many different ways when we began interacting. Because when you're in, I'll speak for myself, in the government job, you just know you have the best of everything. That's 401k, health insurance, this and that. You just know you're all set. And so again, when I'm here in this space, you understand like there's so much more than the 401k. There's so much more. Instead of you working for money, now it's time to allow money to work for you.
Absolutely.
And I first began realizing that truly from mind explosion. I never knew this.
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, and there's a lot that I can unpack with, the 401k and the way that our system, our retirement system is set up right now.
Mhm.
But really what it comes down to is how are you going to take control of your finances? Are you going to do what somebody tells you to do because that's what you
Right.
should do, right? Or are you going to take matters into your own hands? Are you going to learn? You know, are you going to kind of put out your due diligence to take
Right.
and take charge of your finances, And but also, how are you going to mitigate risk?
Hmm.
Because I mean, making money is great, right? But we only have so much to lose, right?
Yes.
And so that's why being able to divest and being able to make your portfolio well-rounded is something that is going to be able to learn, you got to learn different money making strategies, right?
Yes.
So you have your fixed assets, you have your guaranteed assets. What is it? You have your variable assets. You have to learn how to do all of that
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
be able to eventually be comfortable or be free. Because what happens if one thing doesn't work out and that's the only
Yes.
thing you did?
Yes. And guys, if you're enjoying this conversation, which I'm sure you are, is we're really opening this space for you to say, oh, you know what? Let me not be so structured,
Yeah,
and so robotic. Nothing wrong with it, but this is about expanding our consciousness, our awareness. And once we do that, it opens up doorways everywhere. But
yeah,
we are particularly focused in the financial space, but be curious.
absolutely. You know, Raising children, we just had this conversation with my children not too long ago, and
Mhm.
I told them that I don't need you to do well in school, honestly. Um,
Mm.
I'm Asian, of course, we always want the kids to get straight A's and things like that. But truly for me, I don't need you to bring home the good grades, as long as you're passing,
Mhm.
hopefully, right? But I don't need you to be top of your class. What I really want you to be is just constantly curious, constantly wanting
Yes.
to learn, and constantly just in that state of wanting to be more
Mm.
you are, right? Because really that's how you grow, like
Yes.
if you only know what you know, how will you grow? Oh, sorry, now I sound like Dr. Seuss. That's how I have two kids, right?
You
But
got
but truly, right, is being able to be constantly curious. And I feel like as adults, we lose a lot of that curiosity.
yes. We just
Yeah,
don't entertain it for whatever reason.
because we have so much going on, right?
Yes,
So that
correct.
we don't have the time freedom to be able
Right.
to learn because we're constantly stuck in that grind, right? In that hustle.
Hmm.
And so we lose a lot of that curiosity, and it's so sad. So being able to learn about finances, being able to learn really about what drives you and what you ultimately want to achieve, right? And not just being stuck in that learning space, okay?
Yes.
But eventually transitioning to that doing space. Because
Mm-hmm.
you can learn all you want. There's a distinct difference between a teacher
True.
and a mentor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Teachers teach, mentors do,
Mm-hmm.
or mentors have done, And so when you're only in that learning space, you're just learning, right? You want to transition to doing. And so that way, what you're learning can actually be put into action, because if you just learn and you don't do anything with it, right? You're not
Right.
curious enough to experiment,
Very
then
true.
there's no point in the learning.
100%. One of the things that was a big block for me, which I'm glad I walked through, is not thinking. I thought that I had to have six figures before I could set my kids up, before I could give them access to all of these
Yeah.
things. And that's what honestly was my hesitancy to really thinking that, what, that's a possibility. But that curiosity, taking the time and just stepping into it, you can. And these tools, again, they're here, they're available.
They're available and they're accessible. They're available and they're accessible. And a lot of people just don't know about it, honestly, because it takes time, it takes effort. But if you're struggling, right? Like if you're in a position of financial hardship, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're constantly just stuck there. And
Mm-hmm.
so very few people can see the light at the end of the tunnel, because you're constantly stuck in that, I don't know what to do and I don't know how to grow phase, right?
Mm.
So what we want to do is really reach out to you and reach out to those who need this information and let them know that there's another way. You do not have to make six figures. All you have to do is be in control of your finances, know
Yes.
where your money's going, right? And know how to use that money to grow more money, right? And how to
Yes.
protect yourself and how to protect your family. Because honestly, a lot of people out there aren't making six figures.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a military spouse. If I didn't work, right, like we would not be able to do half of what we do, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I also know that if I didn't work and we were to rely solely on my husband's income, that we would be okay because of the knowledge that I acquire.
Mm. I like that. And like you break it down, is knowledge is everything.
Knowledge
Well,
is
knowledge is, but like you said before, are you implementing it?
exactly, exactly. Knowledge is, but if you don't implement it, if you don't live by what you learn, then
Right.
I mean, there is a point, I guess it's good to know, right? But really, truly, what is the point, right? Like,
Right.
why put the energy in? Because as a mom, right, as a wife, I don't have a lot of energy because I'm being split into 100 different directions,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure.
And yeah, and I'm sure you are the same, because I mean, honestly, you only have so much energy to put out.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're
Mm-hmm.
going to take all of this time and effort to learn something, but you're not going to implement it, there really is no point, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
just knowledge that but you're not sharing. And that's why it always comes back to serving for me, because as much as I learn, I want others to learn too. I want others to know, so that way they can go and spread this knowledge, because you would be shocked at the amount of people who have no financial knowledge and they just rely on what people tell them.
Yes. Yes. I was one of those people.
I
I'm
think
healed.
you are doing just fine. I think you need to give yourself a lot more credit. But I love working with you. I love your openness. The openness to learning, because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people aren't. A lot of people
Mm-hmm.
know what they know and they're just very caught up in that. But you know, from children to adulthood, we had to be open, right? To
Mm-hmm.
learn, to be who we are.
Yes.
And so there's more than one way to do things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this takes me to my most favorite question. Of course, you always say save the best for last.
Oh,
So can you share with me a success story, or maybe just an example from your experience, that illustrates the power of passive income and how it can make that significant difference in somebody's life?
um, absolutely. And I think I've seen so many things over the years, honestly. But I'm going to use myself as a prime example. And the reason for
Mm,
that is because we know what we know, right? And
hmm
we are who we are because of what we know. And so for me, growing up, I did not come from an affluent family. We were immigrants, and my parents were very, very poor when we came here. And so we had to work very hard to just be able to make it, to buy that. I remember when my parents bought their first house, I was 16. We had been in America over 13 years, right?
Wow.
Because it was very hard. My dad worked, 80 hours, a week in a restaurant, making maybe $100 a day. Yeah, same thing with my mom. And then eventually she got into the salon space. But, I did not have a lot of financial knowledge growing up. I
Okay.
did not know anything about money. I knew you made money, you spent money. That's what I knew about money, right?
Okay.
I knew that you went to school, you got a job. That's what you did, right?
hmm
So coming into this space, I was very, very financially, mentally poor.
Okay.
And so it took a very huge mental leap for me to change, my habits. And to be able to be who I am today, took a lot of work, right? And
hmm
so it really, the biggest success story is myself, because coming from an immigrant family, I went to college, I did not finish college, because of family business, right?
hmm
Obligations. And so I never really thought I'd be able to make six figures. I never really thought I'd be able to have time freedom unless I was working 60 hours a week, right? 70 hours a week, 80 hours a week, because that's what I was used to, you know?
hmm
I would, I knew that I could make a lot of money if I worked hard, right? But I never learned how to work smart. And so that's why I say you have one body, you have 24 hours, right? But when you can learn how to leverage your time to grow people, to help people, to give them access to that time freedom, to that financial freedom, it really just makes you want to do more of that, because
hmm
I see myself where I was and I see myself where I am, and then I see myself where I want to go, right? And I see the possibility in that now. Whereas if you would have come to me, years ago, I would have been like, okay, well, my family was in the salon business. I'm in the salon business. That's who we are. That's what we do, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
never thought I could be more than that. And so
Wow.
being able to have that opportunity to be more than what I knew
Yeah.
is something that I want to share with everybody, because sometimes we're so stuck and that's all we can see.
Well, I definitely feel your passion, truly. And this is why we even opened the floor to this. As far as team members, since we're having this conversation, opening the doors to people, what type of individuals would you say this space is for, like the team members?
Honestly, I see such a wide array of people in what we do, in our team, in our business, in our space, just in this industry in general.
hmm
Honestly, I work with single moms. I work with what is it, stay-at-home moms. I work with military members. I work with government workers. What is it? It's such a big pool. I work with,
Wow.
I don't know, what is it? Business owners, and what is
Okay.
it? It really is such a mixed bag, because I don't want to say that this industry is for everybody, right?
hmm
Because you have to be able to be open-minded, and you have to be able to put in the work, right?
hmm
With anything, if you're going to do well, you have to work, right? You
Yeah.
have to have the work ethic, but we want to teach you how to work smart. We want to teach you how to work efficiently, not just going in, doing the 9 to 5, going through all the robot movements, right?
hmm
It's about growth and being able to take what you have and doing more with it, and learning how to leverage and grow, and just what my daughter asked me this morning, Mom, what does the word prevail mean?
I love that.
And now that I'm thinking about it, it really is, an amazing word to know, because how are you going to prevail, right? and how are you going to persevere from what you are and where you are. And that's what we want to teach you, is just how to do more with what you know and what you have.
You know, as we wrap this up, I want to, if this sounds like, guys, hey, we're promoting, because we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
To come into this space, right? To come into this space and use the link below. Kimmy, I want to thank you for your time and even coming into this space, and again, for what you do. You can get in touch with us. Kimmy and we are more than happy to open our doors and have a conversation with you even further. So, Kimmy, we will catch you on the next one. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Elle, and have a good day.
You too. Ciao.